In the pages of Marvel Comics' current X-Men line, Marvel's mutants have gone through so much with stories and comic books dating back decades in the modern Marvel universe. However, today, the publisher is looking to turn back the clock a little bit with a brand new miniseries taking place around the time period of December 1st, 1983, spotlighting events lingering around Uncanny X-Men number 176. Legacy creator Ann Nocenti is returning to Marvel for a brand new miniseries centered around the Marvel mutant known as Storm. My name is Arico Braddock, and today let's go ahead and dive into the pages of Storm number 1 to see if Ann Nocenti is able to craft new commentary that could strengthen some plot elements from the Krakoa line of comics. But before we get deeper into the video, I want to go ahead and encourage you to consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that like button if you enjoy our content. I want to go ahead and kick off our coverage of Storm number 1 by reading Marvel Comics solicitation text to give some insight into this debut issue. Storm faces the blowback of her powers. ORORO MUNROE, A.K.A. Storm, has been a thief, a goddess, a leader of the X-Men, and she's just getting started. With her mutant ability to control the weather bolstered by her top-notch fighting skills, she's a formidable opponent like no other, as CALLISTO of the MORLOCKS can attest. But when an elemental power emerges near the XAVIER Mansion, it'll take Storm to the limit of her powers and beyond. Get ready for an electrifying all-new series showcasing Storm's days of rocking her mohawk and leading the X-Men as she faces an all-new villain that will threaten to tear her apart from her team and what she thought she knew about herself. I want to go ahead and introduce our creative team over on Storm number 1. Of course, this issue is written by Ann Nocenti, featuring some art over from Sid Kotian and colors from Andrew Dalhouse. The letters of the issue are coming in over from VC's Ariana Maher, and we have a cover illustrated over from Alan Davis and Alejandro Sanchez. Here's a look over at the cover for Marvel's latest Storm number 1. And I want to go ahead and extend a big thanks over to Adventures in Poor Taste for posting this preview of the issue so incredibly fast. And I want to kick our review off on Storm number 1 by spotlighting some of the interiors in the issue. So I want to stress here that while I did enjoy a lot of the kind of curved line coming in over from Sid Kotian, I did find that some of the anatomy in this issue definitely held some of the storytelling back in certain moments throughout the tale. Also, I noticed that in terms of Sid Kotian's page layouts throughout this comic book issue, some pages have impressive panel bleeds and kind of interesting panel placement, but others look a little bit drab and a little bit formulaic. So definitely a bit off-putting to see some of the adventures of this classic day era of Storm not illustrated with kind of that sense of precision I'm looking for. And I really did find that there were some quite advanced character interactions from Ann Nocenti. So really hoping that in the future, kind of Sid Kotian is able to kind of streamline some of the artwork in the issue and really kind of, create a firmer understanding of some of the anatomy for the characters, because I think that that was the kind of particular element of this issue that left me wanting more in certain instances. If you take a look at this kind of conversation over between Mystique and Rogue in the issue, I think that there's all these kind of points throughout the comic book where I wish that kind of Rogue was illustrated with a little bit more precision, because I think there are these instances where I could have taken some of the source material in the issue a little bit more seriously. Now, I want to talk a little bit about some of the writing in the issue over from Ann Nocenti. I really appreciated how much Ann Nocenti kind of leaned into this current continuity over for the X-Men status quo. And I really think, as we kind of alluded to a little bit up top in the video, that some of these character interactions could definitely help readers get a little bit more out of the modern day Krakoa context of Marvel Comics. The kind of one character who I was able to assign a lot of growth to, be it positive or negative, was none other than Kitty Pryde. in this issue. Kitty Pryde had some really kind of fascinating back and forths here. She had some interesting animosity between Storm, interesting conversations over with Professor Xavier. And if you kind of compare Kitty Pryde in this issue over to kind of what's going on with her in Marauders, I think you get an interesting sort of track record over for the character. I was able to kind of pick apart all these little individual status quos for so many characters in this issue, and that's what really made it kind of stand out to me as a whole. It was interesting to see Storm kind of act with emotion in some of these instances, and also kind of fight with some of her other teammates. I really appreciate reading this issue, especially in the context of kind of recent issues of X-Men Red, because I think it shows that, you know, Storm hasn't always been the sort of best leader for the X-Men due to some of the decisions that she makes, but her heart is definitely in the right place over in this series, which I really, really kind of appreciate from the outset here. And I found it really interesting how Rogue appeared to be a little bit kind of detached from the rest of the team in terms of some of her emotions kind of throughout this issue. Also found it fascinating that there was kind of an exploration of characters like Destiny and Mystique in this tale too, with a kind of spotlight on some of the characters who are kind of currently focused on in the Krakoa era of comics. I think this is actually extremely smartly plotted out from Ann Nocenti, as well as the rest of Marvel's editorial, for kind of choosing such important characters that'll kind of impact Marvel's key continuity. This issue also introduces a kind of new villain for the X-Men. It's sort of an untold tale in the middle of the current X-Men, or the original X-Men run in the series. A little bit interesting to see some of the kind of encounters with Storm and the new villain. Excited to see where that could potentially develop, and I hope it leans into kind of some more interesting story scenarios that make Storm's confrontation with this villain stick out a little bit, as opposed to some other interactions over in the issue. And in terms of kind of what we see Storm go through in this series, I really like some of her characterization that Ann Nocenti sets up. I think one of my favorite moments in this tale as a whole with Storm was her extremely kind of candid conversation over with Wolverine. I think she finally let some of her guard down and kind of shed the animosity that she felt towards her fellow mutants. It was just so good getting those like little kind of nice touches of characterization as well. There's also some really heated and fascinating conversations over between Storm and Kitty Pryde as a whole. I'm really hoping that kind of moving forward, Sid Kotian will be able to capture some of these character interactions with a little bit more of a precise line, and especially in terms of that anatomy over in future issues of the series. And finally, if I could go ahead and maybe get a little bit of criticism levied towards the script of the issue, I think there's maybe some moments where Ann Nocenti leans a little bit too far into the melodrama in the issue. I think some of these kind of final moments in the issue with Professor Xavier definitely spotlight some of those elements as well, including a few of those interactions with Storm. I know that kind of melodrama is just something that you inherently get in the X-Men, but I feel like kind of you really, really need to balance it if it's going to be an element of your story. And overall, I think Ann Nocenti did a good job. I just think that maybe there's a little bit less of the kind of melodrama that you could call out from that scene, and then you could maybe get a script that had a little bit more payoff and felt, a little bit less sort of meandering. So those were some of my thoughts over on Storm #1 coming in from Marvel Comics. I think this was a really fun issue that had a fascinating spotlight on several elements of the kind of Krakoa cast members from Marvel Comics. If you're looking to get a bit of a deeper interaction with some of these characters and want a little bit more context for your next X-Men issue, I definitely encouraging checking this miniseries out. I think that this title is going to be really helpful for people who need some additional frame of reference over for Storm, especially in the pages of X-Men Red. So if you're a big X-Men Red fan, this is probably a really good buy for you, actually. I want to know from you, what were some of your thoughts on Marvel's kind of legacy creator Ann Nocenti returning over to this series? Did you like some of those character interactions throughout the issue? And what do you want to go ahead and see me cover next? Well, I want to thank you so much for coming to check out our video today. We'll be back to cover everything in terms of Marvel Comics, X-Men, and we will be returning to modern day continuity very shortly here. Well, I want to thank you one last time for coming to check out our video, and of course, we'll be back really soon for more excellent comic book content. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon.